Welcome back to the Marathon Mortgage Happy Hour. My name is Rory Farrell.
I'm Mike Witzak.
And we got a special guest here today.
Adam Rubin.
Adam Rubin of Rubin Appraisals.
Rubin Appraisals.
All right. And kin of one of the near and dear founders of our company.
Yes.
Shout out, Bob.
Yeah,
What's he
the old
doing
man.
right now? What's Bob doing right now?
He's probably playing golf. What time is it? Yeah, he's probably on the 12th hole. Right.
That's crazy.
You know what hole he's on, too. That's
he plays
so great.
golf like maybe 5 days a week.
That's awesome. That's what he should be doing in retirement.
That's what he wants.
Bob, we hope you're having a great day.
He is.
Definitely not 40 degrees down there and
Well, you know
windy.
what? They had snow last week, and he texted me, and he was like,
Bring it closer.
he was like, I don't have a shovel. I don't have salt. And then he lives on an island, and there's just one bridge that goes back and forth the island, and somebody got in an accident on the bridge.
Oh, my
so the entire island was shut down for like 3 days.
Holy shit.
That only works on like a retirement island where stuff can stop moving forward for 3 days and everyone's like, it's fine. It'll be fine. We'll all survive.
Yeah.
That's too funny. All right. Lagunitas, Hazy IPNA. So this might be the last podcast that we do
For dry January.
for dry January.
Yes. Thank God.
Mike's like, thank God.
No, we have, oh my God, we have somebody coming in Friday. Well,
Oh, we do?
well, I mean, not this Friday, but next Friday, but it's Friday.
It's Friday now.
Yeah, it's Friday right now. Yeah, we got, we should have CJ coming in Friday.
All right, cool. Perfect. Well, maybe second
No.
last dry January.
Not perfect. Me and CJ will have some beer.
All right. It's
Perfect.
31st on Friday. Maybe I'll
Do
just...
it, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you for coming in, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
You are our certainly first appraiser. Might be the first person who's not a realtor. Is that true?
First person's not a realtor. I think we've only had realtors on.
You're our foray into different industries, but obviously mortgage and real estate adjacent.
Right.
And then your father started this company and obviously was in the mortgage business forever. So let's start from the beginning. Why didn't you go into mortgages?
Well,
And also why, maybe you did, I don't know. And how did you get into appraisals?
I actually did work at Marathon Mortgage for a little bit when it was across the street.
Yep.
I was
Hey.
in high school, and I was in charge of folding the T-shirts, right, the famous Marathon Mortgage T-shirts, and stuffing the envelopes with the amortization schedules and all that kind of stuff, and sending them out to clients.
That, I mean, a lot of that stuff we still do now, and not that people can't get some of that stuff online, and but it's the tradition that your dad started. That
It's that personal.
It's like
touch
that personal touch.
started from the very beginning, and that's kind of how we built this business based on referrals.
Yeah.
was that those personal touches.
That's so funny. You had a hand in it in the beginning.
Yeah. There's nobody else to do it. It was just my dad and Margaret, who was his processor, and me and my sister and stuff like that would help him when he needed it.
Wow. What year was this?
96, I'm guessing, is when it started.
It
Holy
started in
crap.
'96. Yeah, I wonder
That's
how long
awesome.
it took him to start bringing other people on where he could
For the
absolve
first,
you of your
year.
responsibilities.
Well, I did that through until I went away to college.
Okay.
So, and that was 96, so I was 12 years old. So.
Whoa,
For a
that's
couple of
crazy. So you did it
Wow.
for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
My dad would just bring me in on the weekends or whatever when he had a few hours. And
Did he pay you though?
Yeah. I'm sure.
All right, cool. I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Under the table.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely on the books. IRS.
He probably paid me candy if I was talking salt.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's very cool. So you technically worked here on the books or not on the books. Who knows? Did you ever get into more mortgage stuff, or did you ever have that idea of hey, I want to follow my dad's footsteps?
As a young man, I had a feeling that accomplishment and fulfillment in my career would come from building something myself.
Cool.
Starting from the beginning.
Yep.
Building a business. Having the flexibility and control over everything. So while it was appealing to go work with my dad, who owned Marathon Mortgage, or my mom, who had just left Merrill Lynch at the time. My mom's a financial advisor. I decided I wanted to build something myself, and I'm happy I did, because I feel like I learned a lot doing that. And if I had started in the mortgage business at 22 years old, or as an investment advisor at 22 years old, I probably wouldn't be the type of person I am now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So.
Makes a ton of sense. And did you pick appraisals because it was kind of adjacent to what your dad was doing at the time, or was it just
This just explains how much of a genius my dad is. So I was home from college. I think it was my sophomore year at college, and I wanted to do an internship, right? So my dad was like, "Great, I'll set up some internships for you." And my dad set up a bunch of different internships for me. He set up an internship with an appraiser for a couple of weeks. I worked at Marathon Mortgage, shadowing him for a couple of weeks. I did an internship with a different mortgage company that was kind of a big mortgage company. I did an internship with a realtor, and I did an internship with a title company.
Okay.
All that were friends of his.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed doing the appraising the most. I enjoyed being out of the office. I loved looking at old houses.
Yeah.
I loved, how it was simple enough that you could build a whole business yourself doing it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Nice.
Control your schedule and take on the business that you felt like you needed to. Yeah, that must be so cool to like. I always think about like when we're looking at houses that come through with agreement sales. Like
Yeah.
we're always looking at the pictures and like, oh, that's so cool. Like you get, and I say that even in my own neighborhood when homes go up for sale. Like, oh, I'd love to go through there and check it out. Like you get to do it. You get to see like
Yeah.
some very cool houses. I'm sure. And you work in Philly. You work in the counties. Like you see all types of different properties.
Yeah, on the same day, I could be doing a $3 million house on the main line and then a $30,000 row house in North Philly.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so cool.
That's nuts. And do you have like this is just a curious question, but do you have like a house in your head that sticks out that you're like, holy shit, this house was insane? I'm sure you've seen so many of them. But
Good or bad.
There's some rare house, the really rare houses, and the ones that like, you know, they're like log cabins, or I praise a geodesic dome, which is like the big,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
almost
yeah.
looks like Epcot. You know?
what?
They're, like,
You
big things.
appraised one of them?
Yeah, yeah.
How?
It was in
Like how did you find a comp for that?
Well, basically, I mean, you go off of like square footage and condition and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and then you know the appeal of having a house that's unique. You know, that's not, you know, there are other houses that are unique, like contemporary style houses,
Yeah.
log home style houses.
Okay.
that you can kind of compare it to.
Yeah.
You know, and adjust for that uniqueness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that definitely has to play into the value at some point in time, right? Like there's homes that are just so far out there that you're like, all right, that like this has to add or maybe take away from the value. I don't know. Like it could be so far
subjective, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If it has low marketability, like one of the things with that dome that I did was all the windows, none of them really sealed right. You know, because they're all at like right
yeah.
angles and stuff like that. I mean, it's tough enough to build a house using right angles.
Sure.
So to use all these angles, just everything didn't fit right. It wasn't sealed right. So
And then to replace them or
Yeah.
repair
It's
them,
not
like
gonna
who
work much.
you need like a
it's almost like a
specific.
historic home at that risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or how do you get insurance on that? Like who's gonna cover it? Like it's such a weird thing, but interesting. Yeah, that's what I was curious about that. I'm like, I'm sure there's some homes in the area that you've seen that are like, what am I like, what am I going into right now? Interesting.
So the appraisal company that you interned with, do you and obviously you remember them? Are they still in the business, or do you
I
ever
believe
run
they
into
still are.
them?
Yeah, I don't talk to them that much anymore.
Yeah.
You know, just because I'm doing my own thing and there's just so much, you know, going on. You know, I have 2 young kids, so it's like
Yeah.
any free time I have is dedicated towards them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you kind of talked about some of the things that you liked about it with having autonomy and building your own business, but like, what was the thing? What was the main thing? Was like, man, appraisal. You said like I gravitated towards that the most. Like it sounded like that was like a pretty like there wasn't any hesitation there.
No, there wasn't. It was exciting. You know, it was like you get to go look at different houses every day. I get to meet different people every day.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, you know, the process of doing an inspection and filling out a form is, you know, kind of the same, but it's a little bit different. You never know what the different day is going to bring, you know?
Interesting. So like, I guess step by step when you're doing an appraisal, like, so you get a call from the appraisal management company, like go out and we want you to appraise this home. You go out, do you have like a checklist of things you have to hit while you're out there, like taking photos and certain things?
Yeah.
And then you take that information back and compare it to homes?
Basically. So when I do an inspection for like one of your clients, you know, depending on the size of the house, if it's a row home, it probably takes like 10, 15 minutes. If it's like a $3 million mansion, it might take like an hour.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is I usually start on the outside and I take measurements from the outside, okay, of the outside of the building. And the reason you measure from the outside is if you just measured the interior rooms, you'd forget about the hallways, you'd forget about the closets, all that stuff. So you need to have the total gross living area based on the outside. And then when I'm coming in, I'm taking pictures and I'm getting a general idea of the condition of the property, the quality of the materials used, and I'm also taking notes as to how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, you know, is it carpeted or is it hardwood? You know,
Okay.
do you have, you know, recessed lighting? You know, is the basement finished? Things like that. And then I take that information back. I look at comparable sales and try to find the most similar sales, and then we'll make adjustments to those sales prices based on the differences between the 2 properties. So maybe our subject has a finished basement and this comp has an unfinished basement, so I'd make an adjustment to account for that finished basement.
Gotcha. And there's no like automated system that tells you like the adjustment for this should be this. It's kind of like your call on it, or is it like, do you have a rough idea of like, okay, yeah, this is worth like 15 grand, or how does that work?
Well,
in your
I
mind?
personally have a rough idea just because I've been in the business
Doing it for so long. Yeah.
But the way that I do it when I have like a question as, you know, is this finished basement worth $15,000 or $20,000?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You do a match paired analysis. So what you do with match paired analysis is you take 2 properties and you go through all the differences of your known variables, right? So we know what the square footage is, right? We're just searching for the finished basement, right? So we know what our gross living area is, we know what our site adjustment is, our bathroom adjustment. We do all those, and then you see the difference in sales prices. And that difference in sales prices could be attributed to that one variable that you didn't account for yet.
Okay.
Gotcha.
The
Okay.
finished basement.
Interesting.
But you have to have a large data set. You can't just do it on one sale.
Sure,
It
yeah.
has to have a large data set. You put it into a regression analysis, you get a range, and then you pick the
Gotcha.
investment that's in that range.
Interesting. Okay. That's what I was curious about, because I'm like, you can't just go out there and be like, it's worth 25 grand. Cool. And just write it down. Like, I'm sure there's a process to that, but I have no idea. I've never, besides the appraisal report we get and looking through that, that's all I know, So I've always been curious as to like, how are they coming up with the numbers for?
And that's a lengthy
certain-
process to do it that way.
Yep.
And that's when you first start into the business. That's a lot of what you're doing.
Gotcha.
I mean, when I was being mentored, the first 2 years, because it takes 2.5 years, I think, is the minimum for you to get your license.
Oh.
So during that time,
See, I didn't know that.
those are the things you're learning, and those are the things that you're building your data set.
Okay.
And your analysis, so that you can refer to it later. So like, I have a house in Abington that's $500,000 and it's 250 square feet. What do I make a square footage adjustment? I can go back to my data that I've been collecting for 16 years, and I can figure it out.
Yeah, and obviously the more data that you collect year over year, the more and more accurate it
tighter and
theoretically will
tighter
be.
and tighter.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. There's so much that goes on with appraisals that
I
I don't know
know,
about.
yeah, this is-
I mean, we
this
think
is-
we know what we're talking about, and we do from what we need to know from a mortgage perspective, but like obviously there's so much more behind the scenes. How much does sales price come into play? Like if you're like, hey, I'm within 5,000, like I want to do right. I want to make sure that I can match a sales price. Where can I kind of make it up? Or maybe it doesn't at all. Maybe it's like, hey, it's just $5,000 short.
Right. So every appraisal that you have, I mean, we put an exact number on there, like 500,000 is an exact number.
Right.
But every appraisal really is a range. All right. There's a range of values that are ethical. I mean, so maybe for a $500,000 house, the range of values is 490 to 510.
Okay.
Okay. So if it's ethical for me to put it up to 505, if I feel like there's a reason, like maybe its condition is a little bit nicer, maybe it has hardwood flooring throughout, and most of the properties had carpeted that was a little bit dated. Maybe it has a new roof or something like that I can justify moving it up above the average sale price or the median sale price for the properties in that area.
Yeah, so it might be a couple percentage points variability north or south of where
Exactly. And there won't
that
be an
exact
exact
number.
adjustment. There won't be an exact adjustment on the appraisal. It won't say, okay, the roof is $5,000. It's more in the reconciliation section. I could say this house has all these extra items that make it above average marketability value-wise. So that's why I put it up, at the upper end of the sales range.
Interesting.
And I can weight different sales in my reconciliation too. So if I'm saying that this house is really nice and worth more than $500,000 because of its condition, and I have a comp that has a condition that's better, that's more similar to it, I can give that comp more weight.
Right.
Gotcha. And does that, like, have you ever ran into a situation where, I'm sure maybe you haven't, I don't know, but if you've gotten a house, have you ever gotten like a sales contract and then appraised the home and you're like, this home's worth $200,000 more than the sales, or like it's worth much more than what they're selling it for? How do you handle a situation like that? Like, do you just
Call the realtor.
Okay.
And I say, these are the value, these are the comps that I'm seeing. They don't seem to match up to the sales price. What am I missing?
Yeah.
Is there, personal property that's included in the sale that isn't on the contract that I have no idea about?
Yeah.
If it's selling for less, is it an arm length sale? Non-arm length sale, and I had no idea.
Right.
Sometimes something like that. If there's a gift of equity involved,
Gotcha.
I'm aware of. It's usually, if it's that big of a discrepancy, there's usually some kind of reason.
Or
like sometimes like there's some pump, not the sump pump, like their well and septic needs to be replaced. And it's selling for like $100,000 less.
Yeah,
and like if I didn't know and it's not dug up when I'm at the property and nobody tells me.
Yeah, how are you gonna know?
supposed to know?
Yeah.
There's so many times that I get called from a realtor like, oh, are they going to worry about the well or the septic? I'm like, is there standing water? Like, are they going to know about it? Because like you said, to your point, like
It's not in the disclosure. How am I supposed to know?
you're in and out of that place in 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's like you can only really catch so much. And if it's stuff that you wouldn't see with the naked eye, it's probably not going to come up.
Yeah,
now, if you do an inspection,
that's the other thing.
That's
Yeah.
what the home inspection's for.
That's what we always say. Like, you're not an inspector, you're an appraiser. It's two different things. And people, I feel like a lot of people think, especially on their first time around, they're like, the appraiser's an inspector. Like, he's going to come in the house and tear my house apart and look at I'm like, no, it's like, he's going to be in there for 10 minutes looking around. He's going to be out. And somebody asked me the other day, they're like, should I clean my house? I'm like, well, I think you should just clean your house up in general.
Yeah.
But, I think the appraiser's not going to care much about if you have dirty clothes in your bed. Like, they're going to be
I don't care about dirty clothes in the bed, but put away your drug paraphernalia
does that impact the value?
and things that should be locked in your bedstand.
Yeah.
Now Now we're talking, Adam.
there we go.
This is what I prepped you for. I said, let's hear some stories.
Let's yeah, we need some alcoholic beverages for these type of stories.
Sorry, I got it. I can go get some.
No. But no, that's what I was like. I always thought or explained to people is, hey, look, they're not going to be coming into your home and like saying, you need to replace this or replace that or do this or that. They're just coming in. They're getting like a idea of what the home looks like, the things you use to repair the home or rehab it or whatever you did, and they're just getting an idea of like the value and being able to compare it to different places. So,
and I do need to take pictures of all the rooms. Some
Yeah.
people aren't aware of that, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you were taking pictures."
and you're like, okay, so there you go. That's a good thing.
I
to
usually
know.
try to remember to tell people, but
Yeah, that's a good thing for us to do. If they ask questions like that, it'd be like, hey, look, just a heads up, they will be taking pictures. So.
but I don't need to look in closets or anything like that.
Gotcha.
I don't take pictures in closets. The only time I would look in closet if I'm trying to find like an attic, like scuttle.
Gotcha.
I'm like, I'll look in a closet.
Now if the closet's like straight, I was in a house not too long ago that had a closet addition.
A closet addition.
That
Like a
was
secret room?
no. It was just they added an addition on their house that was a closet, and it was like a $750,000 or $1 million add-on to their home.
Okay.
And it was 3
closet.
stories. Yeah.
Is this Princess Diaries or?
Well, pretty much. It looked like it. It was insane. This was that Bograd house that he had
Oh, yeah.
for like $7 and something million. Yeah, it was a 3-story closet, safe in the basement, all that stuff. Like, I mean, vault, not safe, like a vault in the basement. Obviously, walk-in closet, not that big, but like a walk-in closet, things like that. Does that add to the value? Will we be going into closets that are larger to look around and see like what's going on there?
A walk-in closet, I typically will measure.
Okay.
Because you want to, like, lots of times I'll have like a master bedroom and there'll be like a little closet hallway that's like over the garage.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, 20 feet deep and like 10 feet wide
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And if it's heated, then it's included in the gross living area.
Okay,
So-
interesting. Yeah, that's what that one was like. Obviously an outlier. It was insane, but that's what I was curious about. Like, people do have larger closets. I've seen closets like the size of this before, and I don't know if it adds to value or not, but
My wife would say it would.
yeah, definitely.
And that's an important thing to notice too, is like, hey, like, let's say there's a quote unquote a finished basement, but it wasn't done to code, or like it wasn't like, you can't technically count it towards official square footage, but like that's my house. The previous owners kind of fitted it out, but there's no egress and there's no like proper windows. To me, that was valuable, but to you, it doesn't count, I assume, or maybe counts less. Or like a pool, maybe like a
So
pool.
basements are valued separately from the
Okay.
gross living area. So even if your basement was finished, it's not going to be in the gross living area of like your house.
Okay.
Even split levels, split levels, they'll sometimes have that lower level where the garage is.
Yeah.
It's like half underground.
Right.
You don't count that in the gross living area. If you have a bi-level and the lower level is like half below ground, you don't include that in the gross living
Yeah,
area. It's
we
just-
actually just fought an appraisal with that exact. They counted it as a bi-level, like you're saying, where they had thought there was just one walkout, but there's actually a walkout through the back too.
Okay.
And then they counted that as a gross living area, right?
If there's a walkout in the front and the back,
Yeah.
I would see. Well, then it wouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be an issue, right? Yeah, they had counted it as like no gross living area at first, and then we went back to the appraiser and we had said there's a walkout at the back as well, and then they counted it. So I don't know why they didn't count it at first, but
You just missed
that
it or
was,
something.
yeah, maybe they just missed it.
But there is value, like subjective value versus like square footage. Like, okay, this can be counted as square footage, or it can't.
Right. So
Per an appraisal.
So a finished basement wouldn't be included in your gross living area, but if you're looking at the appraisal, there's the second and third pages of these gridded pages, and there'll be a line item there that says area of finished basement and area of in like rooms below grade, and if there's a bathroom down there. So it won't be included in the gross living area, but there will be a separate line to adjust for it.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
Or same thing with like a pool. Like some people, like maybe that adds value technically, but like maybe someone doesn't want that pool, or maybe they do, from a buyer's perspective.
Well, that actually kind of leads into my next question that I was going to ask was, I saw a video yesterday and a guy had added, it was like a vaulted ceiling. When you walk in the front door and there's stairs that go up to the second floor and then the ceilings are kind of vaulted and there's like a window that you can never reach. The guy had built a like tethered together rope thing up there where you could like go up and like climb around and crawl and
I've seen that.
yeah, like things like that. And it was for his kids, and him and his wife could go up there and they could like sit next to the window. And I've seen houses when I was delivering for Amazon, like these like hippies would invite me into their home to drop the stuff off, and they had like a rock climbing wall in their house.
Now we're talking.
Does that all like, is that all what you were talking about before, like the uniqueness and the marketability of it? Does that add any value, or is it just like these guys just put a rock wall for no reason?
That's kind of more just personal property.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just cosmetic. I mean, if you were going to sell the house, you'd probably take the rock wall down.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not going to have an impact on value. It might have an impact on marketability.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I was curious about that because I was like, if somebody's adding all these crazy features to their home, I wonder if it'll be like, obviously, like you were saying, dependent on the person. Somebody might be seeing that and be like, oh, cool, I really want to keep it there, or well, I'll pay extra for it or whatever. But other people will be like, get the hell out of my house with a rock wall. So,
were you around before the appraisal management companies? Like, I don't remember because as long as I've been around, and obviously you as well, like that's just kind of how things were done.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a time when you could, go into a mortgage office with a box of donuts and go and meet the owner, go meet my dad, or go meet Tom, and shake his hand, introduce yourself, and maybe get some business out of it. It's not really the case anymore.
So for those who don't know, explain a little bit about the transition from no appraisal management companies to appraisal management companies, why that happened, and maybe the pros and cons, the differences, things like that.
Yeah, well, the main reason is after the housing market bubble burst in like late 2007, early 2008, they wanted to kind of distance loan officers and appraisers, not to have them direct contact with each other. So I could say, so Tom wouldn't be able to call me and say, oh, I need you to raise this value up $50,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, Tom gives me a lot of work, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So trying to get away from that. So appraisal management companies started coming along, and they're just exactly what they sound like. They're a middleman, between loan officers and appraisers.
Yeah. And that's like, was that a big change for you at all? Or was that just kind of like, we'll just...
It was a big change. So I started my company, Rubin Appraisals, in 2011, and that's when that was really kicking up, when it was like you couldn't really even get clients that weren't appraisal management companies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a positive for me because I was starting out on my own. I didn't really have any clients.
Okay.
So the thought of me as, at that time, 2011, I'm a 25-year-old kid, going into a mortgage office and like saying, hey, I'm an appraiser, I'm from the area, that was a little overwhelming for me.
Yeah,
but going online and signing up with management companies, and they send you an order and you do a really good job and you get it back quick and you're nice to everybody, and then they send you another one, that was a little easier process for me.
I mean, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And how does that work with the appraisal management companies? Are they like, they can kind of filter you more business? I assume if you do a good job, you get things done quickly. Like you said, communication's good. You're not getting complaints from people. Like I imagine that in and of itself just turns into more business if you're doing a good job.
It did. And people will work for appraisal management companies, and they'll move to another appraisal management company, and they liked working with me, so they'll sign me up for that appraisal management company. And that's kind of how it evolved. But I forget what you were saying.
No, just, I mean, that's a killer way to start your business. I mean, it was like perfect timing. It sounded like to not have to door knock. And try and get business from 10 or 15 different.
About the different. Okay, I remember what I was going to say. So every appraisal management company is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have a list of appraisers that are approved.
Right.
Some of them, it's a really long list, and some of it's a really short list. If it's a short list, you're obviously going to get more work. There's some that will base who they send orders to based on what your fee is. Mm-hmm. So that's for a fee quote. Sometimes it'll be on what your turnaround time is.
Right.
I would like it to be more about how well do you know the area, or how close you are,
Makes sense,
or
right?
Your experience or something like that. But it's whatever they need. If they need something back quickly, they're going to send it to the person that needs to get back quickly. If they need it done cheaply, they'll send it to that person.
Interesting.
That is because when we order through,
it depends on the management company. I mean, some of them have different criteria than others. So.
Yeah. So how does that work? Because when we order through an appraisal management company, the fee is what the fee is for just kind of your normal, normal residential appraisal, right? Mm-hmm. But behind the scenes, are you able to set your prices differently, or like?
So I have a contract with each appraisal management company with, it's usually like an estimate of how much like each appraisal would cost, and then if it's something that's unique, they'll ask me for a fee quote.
Right. Yeah.
So I have my fee with the appraisal management company, and then their appraisal management company adds on another fee.
Yeah, of course.
That they charge to you and your clients.
Okay. Cool.
Makes sense.
It is interesting. I never thought about the back end of that, like how you get paid, how the appraisal management company gets paid, and why they would send you business.
So I don't know how much the appraisal management company charges your clients. I just know how much I charge the appraisal management company.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. With arrives,
like 6,
maybe a little less, 575, 5.
Depends. FHA, conventional, they're all different.
Yeah, but about $600.
And there'll be differences, like a FHA appraisal is a little bit more intensive,
Right.
so they'll have a higher fee.
Yeah. So,
This is actually great segue. Realtors are always asking, hey, is this going to be an FHA issue, or do we have to go conventional because of X, Y, and Z when they go to the property? Are they going to run into this? Like, what are you seeing? What are the biggest differences between conventional and FHA? And this is the nugget that realtors will care about.
So for conventional, you can pretty much make anything as is. The only things that are going to be big issues are going to be, water in the basement, which they call dampness, mold, and infestation, which I have a story about if you guys want to know.
And let's segue into that right after this part.
But for FHA, when I first started, there used to be a list that you had to go through the property, and you would check off each thing of the list, and you had to include the list in your appraisal report. They did away with that, and it's a lot more about the way they taught to me in class was, imagine that a family is moving to their house and they have a baby that's in the house. You want to make sure that house is safe enough for the baby to walk around in.
Yep.
Okay, you're not going to want to have peeling paint that could be lead based because it was made, painted before 1976. You don't want to have broken windows. Because you don't want to have 3 stairs that you're going down a stair that doesn't have a handrail.
Yep.
All the basic things that you've.
If you're buying conventional, though, that baby's in trouble. We don't care about any of it. But yeah, so those are the main things: the safety issues, the peeling paint, the railings. I think.
And those are things that have to be fixed prior to settlement.
Right. Yeah.
With conventional, you have a little bit more leeway of just making it as a cost to cure. Or
right.
Decreasing the value if it's like a condition issue or something.
Yeah. So I mean, that's real, and I've kind of guided realtors that way. Like, hey, if it's a safety issue, then you want your buyers to have a safe house anyway. So like, what's why are we worried about whether an appraiser is gonna
who's gonna pay for
cause an issue or whatever? Like, you want a safe house, but it's really not as. I think traditionally, especially realtors who've been in the business forever, maybe back when that list existed, they're always a little bit more adverse to either accepting an FHA offer or wanting to take people out with FHA financing attached. But I would say, we don't really run into it that often anymore. You know what I mean? Like
repairs, you mean?
Just FHA specific repairs where it would be that different, FHA versus conventional.
For like repairs and stuff.
And then you said $2,000 cost cure was pretty much like the most you
That might be the most.
Yeah.
I've had to do.
It's really, I think it's not always about the cost though. It's about like who's going to do it. Because a lot of people, a lot of times sellers are like, I'm not doing this.
Right, who's going to go and scrape and paint?
And then
their
you got to have the
garage?
conversation with the borrower, like, you going to go do this work on a house that you don't own yet? The potential of possibly owning it. But
I've seen realtors going to make repairs a bunch of times.
Yeah. I mean, Tom's gone out and done stuff. Like my dad's gone out and done stuff, like little things, but like, sometimes you just got to get the deal done.
On the hot water heater.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you got to do it. So
yeah, got to make the deal work, What's this infestation story?
Yeah, I would say let's get to that.
Okay, so all right, so I've been doing this for 16 years, and I've gotten fleas 3 times.
Whoa!
How pissed is your wife when you come home with fleas?
So the first time I got fleas, I was in. They've always been in vacant properties. I've never been in somebody's house and like there's been like a dog or a cat.
Okay.
Gotten fleas. It's always like a vacant property, and maybe there's like a stray cat. It's typically in the city or whatever. And
You bring it close to because I don't want to miss anything.
Okay.
You can pick it up.
You can pick it up if you want to. Take it with you.
That's too much for me. All right, so I go and do this appraisal, this inspection, and everything looks fine. The house is disgusting.
Yeah,
It smells like a dog or cat died in there. I get back to my car. I'm putting my stuff in my bag. I'm looking at the GPS for my next appointment, and I look down. I'm wearing khaki pants, and they're moving. There are like little bugs just jumping all over.
Oh my!
You're already in your car.
And I'm in my car.
Oh, it's
and
too
I
late.
freak out. So I start, looking around me, and it's like they're on my arms. They're in my seat. Like, and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah, what do you do?
So first thing I do is I call my wife, freaking out because I'm not good with bugs to begin with.
Yeah.
I get like creepy crawlies. Like I'm telling the story and I'm still like, my skin's crawling.
Jesus.
So I was like, okay, well, how do I get rid of fleas? All right, well, dogs and cats get fleas, right? So I'll go to PetSmart and get like a flea, a flea collar and rub it on myself, or I'll do something. So I get to PetSmart and I see
Heart guard while you're there.
right. So I see these flea and tick bombs. Okay, so they're made so you put it in a room in your house and you let it off, and then the whole room is done with
Did you blow your car up?
fleece and ticks. So that's what I did. So I bought the smallest one.
Hopefully you were not in the car when you were doing it.
So the smallest one was for 150 square feet, and I was driving a Honda Civic at the time. So that was that like 25 square feet?
Yeah, not even. Yeah, like
10 square feet.
Yeah.
So I was expecting kind of like a
I love
dehumidifier.
how he's asking us square footage. I'm like, dude, you're the appraiser. You tell me.
So I'm expecting like a dehumidifier type of mist, that's just like a nice
That's what I'm
little
expecting.
gentle mist. I can roll the window down if it gets to be too much. I pull the pin on this thing like a grenade, and it just my whole car immediately. I couldn't even see out the windows. It was just like like white foam and just spray everywhere.
What the hell?
So I can't, and it's mostly smoke. Okay, so I open the door and my car just like smoke pours out of my car.
So now are you in Philly while this is happening?
No, this is
Just a random
No,
guy.
there's a parking lot of PetSmart.
it's a parking lot of PetSmart at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Smoke coming out.
10 o'clock in the morning, you barely
10 o'clock in
finish
the
your coffee. You're like bombed in your car. Oh my God.
So I open the car door, smoke's pouring out, and a person that's coming into work, a nicer older lady that's coming into work, sees me getting out of my car, and she's like, sir, are you okay? I was like, yeah, just waking and baking,
He's like,
It was like a Cheech and Chong movie.
oh my God.
That's so
I had to have the car door open for like 10, 15 minutes before I could go in and
wow.
roll all the windows down and start to drive away. Like it was.
But,
Wow.
all right.
So after that, I did
So
some
were you just
research.
sitting in the car as this was happening?
Well,
Is it safe
It was
for human?
immediate.
It exploded. I jumped out of the car.
Okay, cool, good.
Like immediately.
Oh
I
my
wasn't gonna
God.
sit in that thing.
Adam lost a couple brain cells that morning.
Yeah, well, there's a couple there's things you can.
Explains a lot, huh?
Oh yeah, explains a lot. There's a couple things you could buy for your car that you put in, and they're like a car bomb for like cents, right? So you put it in there and you press a button, and it does exactly what you're talking about, like mists the air. And you put the car's air on circulating, like interior circulating, and it just blows all the smell through the vents and everything, and it just blows up like that. So I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, you get this thing, you press a button, and it just mists, like you're saying. So you pulled the pin, and it was immediate. It just.
Oh, it was like.
So how are you supposed to even do it in your room? You know what I mean? You in the room with somebody?
Maybe I was supposed to shake it. I don't know.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that before, like years
I've done
ago.
it, like in my garage for like ants. It
Yeah.
shoots up pretty fast, but this for some reason.
Yeah, I don't.
You just got a dud. Oh my
So,
God.
I mean, did it work though?
It did work.
All right, well.
Oh, nice.
And after that, and I got fleas twice after that. So I did some research after that happened and talked to some other appraisers who it happened to. And the thing to do is fleas do not like exhaust smoke. So if you go behind your car and basically bathe in exhaust smoke, they will jump off of you. And
So if you pull into your garage, shut the door.
Yeah.
Turn your car
yeah, turn
on.
the car on, right, and rev the engine. Right.
Yeah, duct tape a hose to your exhaust pipe and put it in the window. get rid of all the fleas, guys. Oh my God.
I felt like I wanted to die being infested.
Yeah, well, yeah,
infested with fleas,
Jesus.
So
That's crazy. I wonder if Mike has any stories like that. So my best friend Mike's a realtor, but his father cleans out foreclosed homes. They have like a clean out company. And while I'm talking to you, I'm thinking of him because I never thought about it. But like appraisers walk into homes too, you don't know what the hell you're walking into half the time. Like you're just walking into these homes and hoping there's nobody there, or if there's supposed to be somebody.
Crazy dog.
Yeah, a crazy dog or something crazy like that. So I'm sure you have copious amounts of stories that are just like wild, that you've seen things that people could like never even imagine.
I'm sure you've walked in where people are sleeping.
Yeah, that happens the most when the properties are tenant occupied. And
Yeah.
people don't let the tenants know. Even sometimes they do let the tenants know. Like I'll do a lot of work in Temple, and Temple has a lot of student housing that's not on campus necessarily.
Right.
So they'll have 5, 6, 7 20-year-old kids all living in the same house. And lots of times the owner is a management company. So maybe they email the person on the lease or whatever, tell them that I'm coming out, but it's not like 7 kids who are hungover from the night before,
Yeah. Or maybe the one
getting
guy got
ready
it.
and cleaning their rooms ready for me to
No.
come in. So
Yeah, why? They don't care. It's not their house.
Have you ever seen any like crazy pets people have?
not anything like an alligator or
Okay.
a lion or something
Yeah.
like that. I try to take pictures for my wife when I go to like a farm and there's like llamas or like
Yeah, yeah.
goats or something
Cool
like that.
animals, yeah.
Cool animals, yeah. Some people like birds a lot.
Yeah.
And that's always a little confronting when I walk into a room and there's just like cages of birds and they're
Yeah.
all squawking at me.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I'm good on birds.
That's where my buddy found Trevor the tortoise. He was cleaning out a home.
Monster.
Yeah, he was cleaning out a house, and there was I think in this is the same house. There was a lady in the home that the son was like caretaking and just left her there. So they show up, they find this lady that's like almost deceased. They call the cops. The cops show up. They like take her. There's a few other animals there that this person had left, and then like they go the next day to open up the door. And he's like, what the hell's going on there? And he looks, and there's a tortoise, like just walking across the floor. And he's like, what the fuck? So he goes over, and it's some sort of African, I forget the actual name of it, but it's like a super spiky shell. It's like really cool looking. And he's like, I guess we're just going to take the tortoise with us. And now he's had Trevor for like 6 years. And it's just, it's like huge.
Did it
It's
get
probably,
big?
yeah, it's like
God, it's a
this big. Yeah, it's probably weighs 25 pounds, 30 pounds. And
No, it's
What
got
do
to
you
be
do
bigger
to a
than
tortoise
that.
with that big? Is there like an
it doesn't weigh
enclosure?
that much.
No, it looks so big.
He well they have like a small enclosure, probably like if you cut the ends of this table off and just made it square, that's where it lives most of the day, and they have a heat lamp over it. And then during the summertime, when it's not cold, because it really needs to be, the heat is like very important to it, they'll put a box outside the same size as this that is just like a frame. So they'll put it on the grass, and they'll put him in the grass, and he loves eating the grass, but he's fast as shit. So sometimes he will climb over the thing.
No way.
He's ran away twice. They have
Ran away?
he's ran away twice.
You know, tortoises.
Yeah, I know, that was
They're
one.
known
Yeah.
to be quick.
They're known to be really, well, I'll tell you what, this thing moves, and they won't be paying attention for like 15 minutes, and then they'll go back and it'll be gone. So they put a piece of duct tape on its shell with the name and address for their home, because it gets up on like the main road and just takes off, and people are like, what the hell is this thing? So then they see that and they call them. But yeah, it's
They
a
should
pretty,
tie a balloon to his shell.
yeah, something like, yeah.
You live in a wild
Where's
place
go?
up there.
Yeah, the mountains are interesting, but yeah, that's, he found that in the house. So I was wondering if like you saw an alligator or anything like that, but
No, and I've
Just
never
cool.
taken an animal from my house.
yeah.
Well, he has a different.
Yeah, these ones are
business.
foreclosed. Yeah, he's supposed to get rid of them. Yeah, that's crazy. But
Have you ever had an owner like pissed at you for not like valuing the house higher, or like, I don't know, like when I've done my own refis and had people come in, like you have a conversation with the owner, and like they often ask like, oh, what kind of value you're looking for, or like, tell me a little bit about the house or whatever.
I have those conversations a lot, and
Yeah.
I have those conversations with realtors a lot. And at the end of the day, it's like I can only do so much.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
It's a loan. It's a appraisal for financing. So there's a lot of guidelines you have to follow. There's a lot of things that need to be bracketed. Things can't be over 12 months old or a mile away. The data set is kind of limited.
Right.
And adjustments are kind of limited too, because they have to be market-based adjustments. So there's only a little bit of flexibility. Really.
But you're assuming people are reasonable though.
Well, when I explain it to them, and I go, and I'm always happy to talk to any client, one of your.
You
clients
are very good
and
at that,
realtors,
yeah.
And I'm happy to take the time and look at the report while they're looking for it and say, there's this reason for this adjustment. This is where this goes. They'll be like, no, you didn't include this in my valuation, and I can show them exactly where it is, and even if I don't make a numerical adjustment for it, like how I reconciled the value higher because of it and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm usually able to appease most people.
yeah, and
People
even
that are usually upset at me when they call me, and then they're fine when they're
exactly, yeah, and it's like even if you do, I'm not saying it's like often at all, but like if there's something that they point out and you're like, oh, maybe I should reconsider that. Like you're not gonna tell them, you know what I mean? You're very understanding, and like you're gonna listen to the person and talk to them, which I think is a plus. Whereas I also think some appraisers like won't do that
Yeah.
at all.
I mean, I get reconsideration of value requests sometimes, if I have a low value, and I always take the time to go through them. And I mean, you guys probably send me reconsideration of value requests. I usually will change something.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The thing is that
if it's ethical for me to do so, if there's something that I missed or something that, hey, go back and take a look at this adjustment. And then I update, maybe I'm using, data from 3 years ago, and there's enough data, this year, so I can just use data from this year,
Right.
and I can make an adjustment based on that.
And we know in our office, and it is nice to know, I mean, we know you obviously, but we've been in the business long enough, we know certain appraisers. And when even if we do give a reconsideration of value to you, and you come back, you're like, no, like, I can't adjust it or whatever. We're like, okay, well, we know that's the value then. Like we have a couple appraisers out there where we trust. We're like, all right, well, he he would change it if he could, and he can't. So then it gives us the confidence to go back to a realtor or a client. Be like, hey, listen, like this is the guy that we trust. We know he's one of the best, in the area.
I appreciate that.
And it is what it is. Like we can't. There's nowhere else to push on it. So it makes our job a lot easier instead of being like, well, we don't really know, and maybe we can flip the appraisal somewhere else, or maybe switch the lender or whatever. But we know with you and a couple others in the area, like, no, it is what it is, and we know we're getting a good appraisal there. So
Appreciate
Definitely.
that. Thank you.
yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on?
No, unless you want to talk about drugs or anything else
No, I
that should
think we
be
covered that. Yeah.
off the air. We'll hear some more stories. But no, thank you for coming in. It was very cool. Like like I said, we have realtors on all the time, and each person's different and has unique, stories and stuff. But a lot of it's, a lot of the realtors do the same business, especially in this market. So it was cool to have
A different
perspective.
And,
Thanks for having me, guys.
something that we can learn from too.
yeah. So
Cool.
well, cheers to that.
Anything that you want to?
Plug or say?
I guess you can't.
Yeah. Shout out Adam Rubin. I don't
Shout
know.
out Adam Rubin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put my email address in the show notes.
There you
I
go.
don't,
Do
I don't
that.
even have a website because
Perfect.
No, well, you don't need one, right? You're busy, right?
I'm busy. Yeah,
That's good.
everything's referrals. So
That's all that matters.
Cool. Well, thank you. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Happy Friday. Happy hour.
Happy Friday. Happy hour.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. I'm empty here.
There's a little bit more.
There's a little. Yeah, I got a little sip.